Hello again. We are halfway through chapter 14. We are starting part 2, page 253. And we're just a few lines down. Did you work out or did you predict who was spying on them? Or were you able to infer? Was there evidence? Were there clues you've picked up so far that would tell you who it was? What were those clues? What information did the text give you to tell you who it would be? Harry bolted to the door and looked out. Even at a distance, there was no mistaking him. Malfoy had seen the dragon. Something about the smile lurking on Malfoy's face during the next week made Harry, Ron and Hermione very nervous. They spent most of their free time in Hagrid's darkened hut, trying to reason with him. "Just let him go," Harry urged. "Set him free." "I can't," said Hagrid. "He's too little. He'd die." They looked at the dragon. It had grown 3 times in the length in just a week. It had grown 3 times in length in just a week. Smoke kept furling out of its nostrils. Hagrid hadn't been doing his gamekeeping duties because the dragon was keeping him so busy. There were empty brandy bottles and chicken feathers all over the floor. "I've decided to call him Norbert," said Hagrid, looking at the dragon with misty eyes. "He really knows me now. Watch. Norbert! Norbert! Where's Mummy?" "He's lost his marbles," Ron muttered in Harry's ear. "Hagrid," said Harry loudly, "give it a fortnight and Norbert's going to be as long as your house. Malfoy could go to Dumbledore at any moment." Hagrid bit his lip. I know I can't keep him forever, but I just can't dump him. I can't." Harry suddenly turned to Ron. "Charlie," he said. "You're losing it too," said Ron. "I'm Ron, remember?" "No, Charlie. Your brother Charlie. In Romania, studying dragons. We could send Norbert to him. Charlie can take care of him and then put him back into the wild." "Brilliant," said Ron. "How about Hagrid?" And in the end, Hagrid agreed that they could send an owl to Charlie to ask him. The following week dragged by. Wednesday night found Hermione and Harry sitting alone in the common room, long after everyone else had gone to bed. The clock on the wall had just chimed midnight when the portrait hole burst open. Ron appeared out of nowhere as he pulled off Harry's invisibility cloak. He had been down at Hagrid's hut, helping him feed Norbert, who was now eating dead rats by the crate. "It bit me," he said, showing them his hand, which was wrapped in a bloody handkerchief. "I'm not going to be able to hold a quill for a week. I tell you, that dragon's the most horrible animal I've ever met. But the way Hagrid goes on about it, you'd think it was a fluffy little bunny rabbit. When it bit me, he told me off for frightening it, and when I left, he was singing it a lullaby." There was a tap on the dark window. "It's Hedwig, said Harry, hurrying to let her in. "She'll have Charlie's answer." The 3 of them put their heads together to read the note. "Dear Ron, how are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian Ridgeback, but it won't be easy getting him here. I think the best thing will be to send him over with some friends of mine who are coming to visit me next week. Trouble is, they mustn't be seen carrying an illegal dragon. Could you get the Ridgeback up the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? They can meet you there and take him away while it's still dark. Send me an answer as soon as possible. Love, Charlie." They looked at each other. "We've got the invisibility cloak," said Harry. "It shouldn't be too difficult. I think the cloak's big enough to cover 2 of us and Norbert." It was a mark of how bad the last week had been that the other 2 agreed with him. Anything to get rid of Norbert and Malfoy. There was a hitch. By next morning, Ron's bitten hand had swollen to twice its usual size. He didn't know whether it was safe to go to Madame Pomfrey. Would she recognise a dragon bite? By the afternoon, though, he had no choice. The cut had turned a nasty shade of green. It looked as if Norbert's fangs were poisonous. So what would you do if you were Ron? Would you go to first aid and see Madame Pomfrey, or would you risk it and keep your hand turning a nasty shade of green and swelling up? If you were Hermione and Harry, what would your advice be to Ron? Would you want him to wait? Or would you support him and tell him to go to Madame Pomfrey? Harry and Hermione rushed up to the hospital wing at the end of the day to find Ron in a terrible state in bed. "It's not just my hand," he whispered, although that feels like it's about to fall off. Malfoy told Madame Pomfrey he'd wanted to borrow... I'm going to start that again because I am starting to struggle. So I just need to take a breath. Harry and Hermione rushed to the hospital wing at the end of the day to find Ron in a terrible state in bed. "It's not just my hand," he whispered, although that feels like it's about to fall off. Malfoy told Madame Pomfrey he wanted to borrow one of my books so he could come and have a good laugh at me. He kept threatening to tell her what really bit me. I've told her it was a dog, but I don't think she believes me. I should have hit him at the Quidditch match. That's why he's doing this. Sorry, I shouldn't have hit him at the Quidditch match. That's why he's doing this. So you can see, I do notice when I'm reading incorrectly and I reread, rather than continuing on, if I kept it as I should have hit him at the Quidditch match, that wouldn't match in what I had read so far. So it's really important that if something doesn't make sense or it leaves you questioning, that you go back up and reread. Harry and Hermione tried to calm Ron down. "It'll be all over by midnight on Saturday," said Hermione. But this didn't soothe Ron at all. On the contrary, he sat bolt upright and broke into a sweat. "Midnight on Saturday," he said in a hoarse voice. Oh no, I've just remembered. Charlie's letter was in the book Malfoy took. He's going to know we're getting rid of Norbert." Harry and Hermione didn't get a chance to answer. Madame Pomfrey came over at the moment and made them leave, saying Ron needed sleep. "It's too late to change the plan now," Harry told Hermione. "We haven't got time to send Charlie another hour and this could be our only chance to get rid of Norbert. We'll have to risk it. And we have got the invisibility cloak. Malfoy doesn't know about that." They found Fang, the Boy Hound, sitting outside with a bandaged tail when they went to tell Hagrid, who opened a window to talk to them. Why does the Boy Hound Fang have a bandaged tail? Once again, it hasn't told me, but I need to infer using evidence so far as to what may have happened. If JK was to give you every single detail and explain everything to you, I don't think it would make for a very exciting book when everything is just handed to you. That's part of the important part about comprehending what you read and making those connections. So make the connection of Fang's bandaged up tail and how it happened. And what clues did you find to tell you that? "I won't let you in," he puffed. "Norbert's at a tricky stage. Nothing I can't handle." When they told him about Charlie's letter, his eyes filled with tears, although that might have been because Norbert had just bitten him on the leg. "Ah, it's all right. He's only got my boot. Just playing. He's only a baby after all." The baby banged its tail on the wall, making the windows rattle. Harry and Hermione walked back to the castle, feeling Saturday couldn't come quickly enough. They would have felt sorry for Hagrid when the time came for him to say goodbye to Norbert, if they hadn't been so worried about what they had to do. It was a very dark, cloudy night, and they were a bit late arriving at Hagrid's hut because they'd had to wait for Peeves to get out of their way in the entrance hall where he'd been playing tennis against the wall. Hagrid had Norbert packed and ready in a large crate. "He's got lots of rats and some brandy for the journey," said Hagrid in a muffled voice, "and I've packed his teddy bear in case he gets lonely." From inside the crate came ripping noises that sounded to Harry as though the teddy was having its head torn off. I think better the teddy than them. "Bye-bye, Norbert," Hagrid sobbed as Harry and Hermione covered the crate with the invisibility cloak and stepped underneath it themselves. "Mummy will never forget you." How they managed to get the crate back up to the castle, they never knew. Midnight ticked nearer as they heaved Norbert up the marble staircase in the entrance hall and along the dark corridors. Up another staircase, then another. Even one of Harry's shortcuts didn't make the work much easier. "Nearly there," Harry panted as they reached the corridor beneath the tallest tower. Then a sudden movement ahead made them almost drop the crate. Forgetting that they were already invisible, they shrank into the shadows, staring at the dark outlines of two people grappling with each other 10 feet away. A lamp flared. Professor McGonagall, in a tartan dressing gown and a hairnet, had Malfoy by the ear. "Detention!" she shouted. "And 20 points from Slytherin! Wandering around in the middle of the night! How dare you? You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter's coming. He's got a dragon. What utter rubbish! How dare you tell such lies? Come on, I shall see Professor Snape about you, Malfoy. The steep spiral staircase up to the top of the tower seemed the easiest thing in the world after that. Not until they'd stepped out into the cold night air did they throw off the cloak, glad to be able to breathe properly again. Hermione did a sort of jig, which I find interesting because she's always so responsible and sensible. So it's nice to see a different side of her character. So she's got a bit of celebration going for her. Malfoy's got a detention. I could sing. Don't, Harry advised her. Chuckling about Malfoy, they waited, Norbert thrashing about in his crate. About 10 minutes later, 4 broomsticks came swooping down out of the darkness. Charlie's friends were a cheery lot. They showed Harry and Hermione the harness they'd rigged up so they could suspend Norbert between them. They all helped buckle Norbert safely into it, and then Harry and Hermione shook hands with the others and thanked them very much. At last, Norbert was gone. They slipped back down the spiral staircase, their hearts as light as their hands, now that Norbert was off them. No more dragon, Malfoy in detention. What could spoil their happiness? The answer to that was waiting at the foot of the stairs. As they stepped into the corridor, Filch's face loomed suddenly out of the darkness. Well, 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 he whispered. We are in trouble. They had left the invisibility cloak on top of the tower. So that is the end of chapter 14, as I'm sure you can predict what I'm going to say next. Think back over that chapter and sum it up in 2 or 3, maybe 4 sentences in chronological order, in time order from start to finish. You wouldn't start by saying people came and collected Norbert and then Hagrid had an egg that he won in a game of cards. It needs to be in order, otherwise it won't make sense for other people if you shared your summary, and it would be confusing for you later on when you were rereading. So, also think about the 3 most important details. What was your favourite part of the chapter? What did we notice that Hermione did in celebration? It was a side of her we certainly don't normally see. She certainly is the serious one of the group. So think about the 3 characters, Ron, Harry, Hermione, and think about their different characteristics. What characteristics do they share? And also, how are they very different to each other? And how do you think that works as a friendship group of the 3 of them together? Do you think the dynamic has changed since Hermione is now friends with them? And I will leave it there for chapter 14 and tune in soon for chapter 15. Bye.